So before we get into our normal video, I have a few questions just to see if my opinion is the same as everyone watching. So, looking at the two Pokemon on your screen, which one do you think has the higher attack stat? I'll give you a second. You can pause the video and think about it if you really need to. But I'll let you hold on to that question. The next question. Which one of these two Pokemon do you think is faster? Okay, that's question 2. Write down your answers, keep them in your head, something like that. Last question. Which one of these two Pokemon do you think has the higher special attack? Okay, you got all those questions in your head? You got all your answers? You think you're right? Well, for question number 1, if you said the Pokemon with the gigantic mantis claws was the one with the higher attack, you'd be wrong. It's Tsareena, for whatever reason. If you said that the one in bell bottoms was faster, Lurantis again, you'd be wrong, because Tsareena is actually much faster. And if you said that Tsareena, the more queenly looking one, was the one with higher special attack, you'd be wrong, because Lurantis actually has decently higher special attack. So don't feel bad if you missed every question, because that's what I did. When I went in and looked at these two Pokemon, I thought they were opposites until I actually brought up the pictures. So it just kind of blows my mind that the one that looks, to me at least, like it would be fast and high physical attack, looks a lot like Mienshao, is actually slow and less strong than Tsareena. But anyway, we'll get on with the video. So Tsareena actually has really good stats, and not at all what I expected it to be like looking at the Pokemon originally. But the grass typing does let it down a little bit since it only gets one same type attack bonus. But really, it's still a decent Pokemon. With 120 base attack and 98 in both defenses and 72 health, it's decently bulky, fairly strong, actually above average as far as strength goes. And 72 speed is a lot faster than a lot of other Pokemon that have been introduced in Sun and Moon. The 50 special attack really doesn't matter, because usually if there's one stat that's going to be bad, it's better off being one of the attacks anyway. So, as far as Tsareena's abilities go, they all have their uses, but none of them are really stellar. So, Leaf Guard prevents you from getting statused in any way as long as the sun is up. But that's kind of situational, and weather is not what it used to be in Generation 5. So I really don't see this ability getting much use. Queenly Majesty is similar to Bruxish's Dazzling ability. Sorry about that, its name always gets me. But what it does is it prevents any type of priority moves from activating against it, which is actually a very good ability in certain situations, but otherwise it leaves a little to be desired. And Sweet Veil, its hidden ability, actually doesn't help it much either. It's probably the least useful, only because since Tsareena is already a grass type, it's already immune to Spore and Sleep Powder. So really the only way it could fall asleep is something like Dark Void, which has been nerfed, or Sing, which no one really uses. But honestly, I see Queenly Majesty being the ability run most of the time, and I could see it having its use, especially if you run it in the first set that I have to offer you all today, which is a speedier set, because even though it's only 72 speed, if you put a Choice Scarf on it, suddenly it's a lot faster, and it's outspeeding a lot of things, and it can't be hit by priority moves, so even if it's on 1 health, it's more than likely going to outspeed your opponent. As far as Nature, I thought Jolly Nature just to make it as fast as possible, because 120 base attack is going to be able to hit fairly hard no matter what. Maxed out its speed, maxed out its attack. You can change it up and make it bulkier with the Assault Vest if you wish, but I just thought Choice Scarf would be the primary set that I would probably run on this Pokemon. As far as moves go, it gets a unique move called Trop Kick. And what Trop Kick is a 70 base power physical grass type move that doesn't sound too good to begin with, but it has a 100% chance, as far as I'm aware, chance to decrease your opponent's attack stat by 1, which actually gives this Pokemon A lot more ability to live longer. Reducing attack on Pokemon that come in is very handy if you have the Assault Vest, because then you're bulkier on both sides. And it just has a lot of utility along with being decently powerful. This Pokemon also gets High Jump Kick, which I think is kind of crazy because on first glance I wouldn't say this Pokemon, perfect, give it High Jump Kick. Don't give it to the little mantis looking Pokemon. But I'm not complaining because I think it's going to be very useful. It also gets Play Rough as an egg move, which fairy typing, not stab, but fairy typing coverage is not ever a bad thing because you can cover things that you wouldn't normally hit, like dragons that would normally eat up a grass type hit. It also gets Rapid Spin, which is more of a utility move, so it would probably be better on the Assault Vest set than the Choice Scarf set. And it gets U-Turn, which is quite possibly the best move to put on a Choice Scarf Pokemon, just because you can get out without being locked into something that could leave you in a position so that your opponent could set up or something. Some other moves that this Pokemon gets are Leaf Storm, which really isn't that useful unless your opponent just completely expects you to go for a physical attack, and maybe you could catch something by surprise that's paper thin on the special defensive side, but that's very situational. It also gets Acrobatics, which is useful if you run some kind of berry on this Pokemon or something different to get rid of your item, and that way you can have a base 110 power flying move, which would also be very handy in this meta, depending on which Pokemon fall where. But I feel like Acrobatics would be very helpful against Pokemon like Komao, which is the pseudo-legend of the generation. It also gets Synthesis, which, you know, it's 50% health back. It's like Recover, but it gets more power in the sun and less power in other weather. And it gets Screens, which seems to be a recurring theme, which is why there are actually now new attacks that break screens that are very similar to Brick Break. So normally this is where I would end the video, but for the 3 videos I'm putting up today, I actually have 3 sets for each. One that I think will be the more standard, and one that I would like to try myself to see if it works, because that's what I like to do, is I like to make my own sets after the meta has solidified. So the secondary set, I would have actually preferred Steenie, because it's more of a bulky set, and a Pokemon with Eviolite would have taken great advantage of this. But Steenie is actually terrible. Its stats, even with Eviolite, aren't as defensive. Or if they are, they're just barely more defensive than Tsareena, and even then it has quite a bit of a lower health stat, so it's just not worth running Tsareena, or it's not worth running Steenie over Tsareena at all if you're ever trying to run a bulky set, unless you're in the lower tiers. So for this one, I thought max out its special defense and give it a special defense boosting nature, and then give it Trop Kick, because again you get the minus attack on things that switch in, or if you outspeed them. You get U-Turn, which is good for building momentum. You can switch in, take a hit. Your opponent is obviously going to switch into something like Salazzle. You U-Turn, and then you can bring in, say, your Bruxish against the Salazzle, or maybe not Bruxish, but something else that can handle it. Then I also threw Synthesis on there for the healing factor that we talked about earlier. And then I thought for the last move, it really depends on what your team needs. If you need a screen, run Light Screen or run Reflect. You can run Toxic to wear your opponent's down and you can stay in longer, or you continue to U-turn, gain momentum, and block their attacks and maybe doing more damage to other Pokemon. Or you could run something like High Jump Kick or Play Rough as coverage. But this is the set that I would prefer to run because it already has enough speed to naturally outspeed the slower Pokemon in Gen 7. So I really think this thing could be run multiple different ways, and that is my favorite thing about a Pokemon. So I can't wait to use this. I probably won't use it in my actual run of the game, but after I beat the game, you better believe this thing is going on one of my first sets.